to get that out because we probably can talk 40K stuff this time, or maybe not. I don't know.
Well, maybe. Let's find out.
It's not often I can drop Talcott Parsons. Like the universe is a clock. Heat.
Well, no, more on that later. More on that later, I think. Hello, welcome to the Stream Streak. This is day 112. It is the 40K adjacent show, and I'm joined by two wondrous, gorgeous men. The only problem with these men is that their minds are even more beautiful than their wonderful faces. I'm joined by the Falcon down below, who's been asleep only for 3 hours to do this show. So thank you so much, Falconian Jones. And then Valorous is your new name today. Heffelfinger.
I thought you were going to call him Van Helsing. I was like, that's cool. How did you get that cool nickname?
Who has been on this show so much this week, it's almost his show. Hey, Val.
I don't even have to say anything anymore.
It's really what he does.
I just be here. Just exist.
I want to say big love to everyone who's joined us in the chat. So Callum, MJ Pegasus, Tristan, sorry again, Ben Clapton, what up? Also, thanks to Chris Serbator for subscribing for his 30th month in a row. Yes, if you guys aren't aware, you can go to Fireside and the Falcon's 40K channel, where is it your Tuesday?
Monday.
Is it your
my
Monday
still?
Yeah,
my Monday, like super late on Monday, like 10:30 my time, so 9:30 Pacific. I read a short story or two to whatever it'll fit in about an hour, and people can listen, or you can listen to it later while you're painting or whatnot. I'm going through the short stories from Magos right now, and then I'm going to be accepting requests from the viewers after that.
That's very exciting. But it's now been recorded, so we can watch it back live for the first time.
Yes, I didn't do the first one because I didn't understand electronics, but I now have a better understanding because I Googled something.
That's how I learn everything. And that's how the kids will work too, I think, in the future.
It is.
Val,
We're all 21st
you?
century digital boys.
Yes, they are.
Pete took off his silly props. He lost his prop.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Pete, where was your captain's hat?
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah.
Now, you told me you had a captain's hat, but I didn't know that it was it's a fabulous captain's hat.
Oh, yeah. Well, my options were a real one that was going to take like a month and a half to get to me, or this nice, super shiny one that was only going to take 2
East Coast
weeks.
Village people? Like, what do we got here?
I don't know. It was like from a Halloween store, I think, in China. I'm into it. I'm into it.
You got to get a disco ball on first day with the Falcon. That hat is especially awesome.
So anybody that watched last night knows that at some point while I was talking, someone noted that I look like the captain from Tintin when I'm wearing this hat. And my wife is French. And so her growing up with Tintin, as that is like the language of her people, immediately...
Not in person. More with the character.
Yes, read it. They hopped onto the chat to confirm that was correct and that she can never unsee it. So this has potentially either made my marriage better or ruined it. And we'll have to wait and see.
To be honest, I don't think I want to know the answer to if it's improved elements of your marriage. But I'm interested to find out if... Yeah,
I'm a father of 3, Rob. Everything improves the marriage at this point.
When you're in high level, you just gotta do what you can.
Yeah.
You
when you're
really
in
do.
Time. Val,
yeah.
Sorry, I feel disjointed today. I feel a little bit disjointed. I'm not cracking it. Apologies to both of you. How long is it until you hear the footsteps of children who may like Tintin in the future?
The call of the children. Actually, I was saying that to Ms. Hef today, that I should probably brace you guys. That could be like any day.
Oh,
whether she's July. Wow, she's July due 21st.
Should we all do a reset? Should we all
No,
start
it's okay.
again?
We got it. I've been there.
And
I've
then the adjacent show very much fell off the rails. Yeah, so she's due July 21st. So who knows? Also, she could not fall back asleep today because her little app told her that at this point, the baby is the size of a pumpkin. And so she essentially lived a waking nightmare for the next hour until I woke up. And I assured her that it wasn't the same, like, dimensions as a pumpkin, maybe volume, weight.
Yes,
But
it's a weight volume combination. I mean, in the sack, depending on the person,
Dans la sac.
it is also probably the size of a pumpkin. It's kind of cute. Kind of cute.
Yeah. Yep.
You're fully developed at this point, so super good. You're A1. You're in the clear.
Ultrasound on Thursday. Gonna find out if it might be time to just
yank it out. Really? I don't know. Usually that one is the one where they're like, "Listen, if we need to, here's your date." Right?
Yeah,
They give you the closing date. Like you have to be out of the. We have to get them out. Eviction notice on this date.
That's right. Ejection notice.
Yeah,
there's a lot.
We had that with our first. So with Xander,
this is
he met it.
Rob thinks he's real, but this is mad real. Mad real.
It's too real for me. I'm just sat here like, oh god.
Yeah. Xander came like 5 minutes before what would have been his eviction notice. He decided, I guess it's time. Yep.
I was early. I was like
born at 13:37. 13:37. I remember it very fondly.
Like 1:37 p.m.
Yep. 13:37 because the doctor said it, and I said my son is leet, and that is amazing.
And did the doctor high five you, or was he like, I've had to spend 8 years learning my profession. I've never played a game.
18. So he was a retired whatever they call him, pregnaturgeon, and
new 40K unit coming soon.
I knew him because I went to school with his son, and he just like an old man, and he kind of just like came in and he's like, this is supposed to be my retirement days, but the guy's sick, so they brought me in. I was like, A1, man, you do you. And he just like
they fired the OBGYN signal up in the sky. Like,
yeah,
what does that even look like? Just like
ripped apart my wife, stem to stern, right in front of me, and they were like, "You can watch if you like." And I was like, "Okay, I'm 24. This sounds awesome."
Whoa.
And or 26, I guess at the time. I was 24 when I was married. Anyway, and so I watched, and it was beautiful. Like, way better than number 2, where the doctor like really tore up. She was just like, "You need to sit down, sir. I can't let you watch this." And like, there's just like flailing. It was good.
God,
there you go, Val.
I feel so awkward right now.
I mean, I could talk days.
Val, how do you? Please don't. Please do not. But like, I mean, it was beautiful. Is wonderful. But
I don't know if you've ever had dinner with Pete, but he enjoys telling graphic medical stories, usually involving horrifying injury. So, I made a mistake. I brought a snack, and
that looks like the end result.
And it's a very poorly chosen snack.
Yeah, it was.
And
we have specifically talked about things I can't eat anymore.
So
and that is one of them. A bent on a bibble bop.
Yeah.
Oh God, I'm hot. I'm sweating from this conversation. And we've talked about some tough things. This is, as Owen is saying in the chat, maybe far too adjacent. Maybe the most adjacent. This conversation
this is Edouard at this point.
Yeah, and someone's saying that this conversation evidence that childbirth is far harder on the father.
Wow. Wow.
Psychologically, maybe. Psychologically.
I'm not going to lie. Pregnancy so far has been awesome. I get my evenings because she passes out like so early. And the snacks are fantastic. So it's been
like the crazy nesting phase. Did you have that where she just like had to make sure everything was ridiculously clean?
Ridiculously clean and just rebuilt half the house. It's been my whole
good.
Changed. Yeah. I did get a nice whiteboard out of it though.
Oh, nice. Whiteboards are good.
Write my ideas down now when I need to jot them down.
I was thinking of getting one of those. I might be able to segue this. Get ready. I feel like I gave birth this weekend to an idea.
Oh,
How
I
did
know
I
where this is
do?
going.
How did I do?
You did okay.
Okay.
You got to
Did
watch.
like a doctor
Sorry,
reach
that
into
means-
into your stomach and pull out a living being in a like one fell swoop?
No, but if it's anything like, I mean, it hurt. If that helps, it hurt quite a bit, which is fun. Anyway, that was me trying to segue. I didn't know how to go from birth to 40k.
Cabbage.
No,
Cabbage. Absolutely. And that's another one of those things I didn't know about. So good times. There's basically every factoid you learn about this process
would
of humans
never-
becoming people.
I would never bring that part up. That's a whole other shenanigans.
That's a wow.
Plus,
every single. I don't know how a human
C-sections
exists.
all the way.
I don't know how humans exist.
It's true.
First of all, I don't know why anyone would ever do it. Yeah. But anyway,
on the
good
plus
luck,
side,
wife.
T-Sports Network got started up like in full in terms of tournament 40k.
Yep.
Rob?
Well, no, yeah. So we did that, and
From the womb
I've talked enough about it, and I would like to talk about actual 40k because I think there's genuinely
Okay,
40k news.
Well,
but
I
just
don't know.
wondered-
Did you guys? Sorry, did you guys talk a lot about the leaks when Val was on and I wasn't, or did you kind of just skim it?
we did high level.
Then like the release of all of the rules, Pete?
Oh, that and just like the Mournival stuff because that was awesome. Like, and not in a good way.
Yeah, we talked about
we
it.
touched on that a bit on Saturday.
Yeah. Yeah, in
That's
a good
too
way, I feel. Quite healthy. The only question I'll ask about the Super Series stuff, I guess,
Sorry,
is
still just
do
very
you guys like what it looks like, or are you interested? Especially you, Pete, because I know Val's already seen it ahead of time, so that's a bit unfair. But like, if you think that might apply well to 40k, I guess is the real question.
Of course I do. I'm super interested in anybody that's trying to take it into a new and exciting way. I won't say unique but I love it. I like your ideas. Presentation's pretty solid. Can't wait for like a full on, hey, this is how everything's going to work video.
It's exactly that. Did you go to the website?
No,
I did.
Pete wants every detail. Pete wants every detail in minutia.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
I told Robin, like, where's my 2 seconds of
Vamp.
I hilarious, man. I gave him the exact opposite criticism.
No, I love it. I love the concept of a banned list because people hate it, and I think just my little gremlin wants it to happen now more than ever. I love everything about it.
Actually, so one of the really interesting things for me is putting out into the wild and having done most of it in isolation, and I don't want to talk about this too much, having done most of it in isolation with some people giving me some feedback, I knew that there would be challenges and people would come up with some stuff, and I've already had some really solid feedback about how to do the bans. Like, did have it going alternating, but I'm probably going to change it up to 1-2-2, go as a thing, if that makes sense. So if you go
much
first,
like League of Legends.
Yeah, much like that. So
like this banning concept, I don't want to trigger you, Rob, but Pro Tabletop also brought in sort of a banning idea with their deployment selection at the beginning.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And also was controversial.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand why 40k crowd, what the problem is with like a accepted concept in like every game. Like there's ban lists in Magic, like there's all kinds of stuff like that uses this concept. Esports uses the sort of elimination thing. Why is
champion banning?
Like we play other games. Why is it such a hard pill to swallow for 40k?
My question is because I was privy to a conversation that maybe I shouldn't have been privy to, but effectively a well-placed Age of Sigmar player somewhere in the world gave their criticism of it in a very long thread, but it was and not for my eyes, but I was managed to see it, which is good. And the positive for me was I got to look at the criticism and embrace that criticism and understand where I think it was coming from. And the criticism effectively boiled down to, and I would like to know if you guys think it's valid to argue against my own idea, so I'll play that role there. And it's not my idea, like Val said. I've just, Pete said, I'm not inventing the wheel. I'm just taking a bunch of different things from different systems and plugging it together in something cohesive, very much like Jeet Kune Do did, which is a martial art I studied religiously my entire life. It's the glue that's important, not the actual bits. But you could talk about Bruce Lee. I could talk about Bruce Lee all day. His point is he felt that what you're doing when you ban units is you are attacking the army and not the players, and it doesn't improve skill. That's his statement. It doesn't improve skill, and it doesn't make it competitive. My thoughts are it makes it more competitive because it's like if banning OP units, let's say that's what you do. Let's say you do that, reduces your skill. You don't actually have any skill. You just have really strong units. Are my thoughts, but I'd like to know what you guys think.
So, TFG Radio, Adam Solis actually has a long talk about this when it comes to like player styles and player types, and he's done a couple articles about it. How there's like engineers, which are people that can like really build lists, and there are people that are like captains who can field a list, no matter like as long as they've been given it. And there's people that are kind of an in between. And so I think it's different skills that accomplish different things in 40K. That said, a good player, it is not going to care what units you ban because they should have already been thinking about it from an FAQ standpoint going forward. So they should know, hey, when that, inevitable X ban FAQ comes out, I expect this unit's no longer going to work. So I'm going to slot these units in instead, just like you would see in Magic and other things. So I like it, and I think it is definitely something that it will show skill. It may not show all skill, right? If you look back in the history of the ITC, there were people that absolutely dominated with particular faction lists because they mastered them. And if you banned anything in that list, they essentially can no longer play the game properly because they just don't understand any other style of play. They focused so heavily. Those would be people that would be hurt. And I don't think they're less skilled than some other people. Like I think about Jim Vessel, who struggled after his list got nerfed. I've watched Jim play. He's a fantastic player. He knows his rules inside and out. But at the same token, he really struggled after his list got nerfed. There are people in like 2017, 2016 Inari players who dominated the scene in their local metas, and as soon as Inari got trashed, you've never seen them or heard from them again.
Wouldn't you argue, though? I agree with you that they're not less skilled, but wouldn't you argue that gives them the opportunity to develop as players?
Sure, and I'm not I 100% agree with you, Rob. Is what I'm getting at. I just think that like I wouldn't say it's necessarily all skill. It's a style. It's like a type of skill that they just happen to exceed at or excel at.
So I think what essentially happens when you tweak a rule or you change something, a mission, or have a ban list or whatever it is you just change, relatively speaking, what is strong and what is available, right? So like it's just going to create a different meta that's unique to what your show is. Ultimately, if you told a supercomputer play this format against one another, you would get a perfect ban list and a perfect set of optimized lists, assuming the meta stayed constant. Over time, your meta would be solved even with a ban list because there is a right decision. Like eventually you get to a right decision or a more. But
if you're doing like a rotated ban list, though, that's interesting as well because then people have to roll with the punches. Like there's lots you could throw into that to make it extremely interesting from a competitive play perspective.
One thing that would do. Sorry, I would. Sorry to interrupt you. One thing it would do, and I think this is why people get frustrated. And interestingly, this is something, Rob, to throw it right back in your goddamn face.
Please do.
This is something that has frustrated you a lot. Is that having everyone on the same page, right? So like having everyone playing a similar format means that you get a global meta, which means you go from one place in the world to another, and you're playing the same game. As a viewer, I think the ban concept is cool, and I think that's awesome. As a player, it might be why people are having a trouble accepting it, is because you're going to create a different game for your channel than would necessarily be played at team tournaments and other tournaments, right? So
agreed, and it's a really valid criticism as well. I also think that there is, as we've already discussed many times between us and people who talk at it Infinitium, that a list is good for singles versus a list that might be good for teams. Like, we
Yes.
have that conversation already. Like, so already there's a dynamic shift, and they're already in the team format is widely accepted, and as I understand it, very much embraced. There's the pairing process and how exciting that is in trying to develop the best team the best team matches. And then we also can identify problems in singles event, luck of the draw. There's one as games go on, and LVO is a great example of where they've tried to hone that down to the least problematic. It's basically at LVO, because of the pool, the better performing players generally kick cubs for like 3 rounds at least, and then they start getting into their tough matchups, and then final day they've actually really got to start showing their credentials. I mean, they do have to in 4, 5s, and 6s as well, obviously, but it's effectively 3 free wins, to progress. I'm not saying that is 100% the case, although I think the stats from LVO were like, your top 100 were performing in the crazy percentile. I can't remember.
80th percentile. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also,
yes.
I mean, if you point out again, just using the pro tabletop guys, I don't know if they I think they didn't have enough people to do it, but they intended to give buys to the players who were like top tier. Like,
Yeah,
and apparently that's a
people
normal
also didn't
thing.
like it. It is a normal thing in regular play, like in Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
You get buys at certain events. The big talk recently there was a large Magic event where they didn't even tell people the proper format unless you were at a certain level of player. That was
Wow.
that was kind of what they did. They were like, if you're in the top whatever rankings, then here you go. This is what you're going to be playing. Everybody else show up. And actually, a dude got in trouble because he was under NDA and told a friend, like, hey, this is what you should expect. And that guy told other people. And dude was just banned from Magic for like a year.
Wow.
So this is just kind of like, that's how they do things over there. It is very unique. And I think that's a thing that people the game is 40K as a competitive scene is so, I guess, new to the general public that it's harder because people get really uppity. And like somebody was saying in the chat, Ben Clapperton, the other thing about banning units is unless you're in like a really high level of competitive play, people get really attached to units because you put so much time and effort into them, painting them, etc., giving them names and insurance policies, and then then to just be told, hey, you can't play that anymore does suck. But I mean, the other side of that is that's the same thing happens in FAQs and they just happen, right? I mean, how many people bought a triple repulsor for Iron Hands and then GW was like, oh, we made a mistake, that's not good anymore, and so they lost their minds.
Yeah.
The thing too, I think on the flip side of all this is, what do you want to do, mate? Like, so if you believe in that, and I don't know, maybe just try it out, see how it feels. Does it actually create the tension that you're looking for? Are you just looking a way to get rid of those, like, because I think AOS turns on really big centerpiece units. I don't really think it would work very well in 40K. There's like, even if you kill a special character, there's like a generic version that's always going to do about the same thing. You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe there's a few key linchpins, but like I think AOS has that maybe more like that croak thing or whatever. The point I'm trying to make is on the last show, I got criticized because apparently I was talking about being elitist on YouTube, but I wasn't. That was about capitalism. No, I was talking about how there are all these channels I had never heard of in my life that have like crazy amounts of followers, and the thing that I was trying to say was, I can't believe I haven't seen these guys. I'm excited to discover these things. It's kind of messed up that we live in such like a tiny community that a very popular thing could happen and one part of the community could just not be aware of it. Right. So that's something to keep in mind, is that like these guys who are criticizing you, they may not like it because they're viewing it as like a player, but you're building something for an audience. So if you think it's good for your audience, and you think it's an engaging element that's going to make the games better, that's all that matters, because there could be 5 times as many people as play competitive AOS that wind up watching this. There could be 10 times, there could be 100, and there could be a fraction of the amount of people, right? So like that's who you're worried about. I think that's what really sunk the pro tabletop guys coming out of the gate, is because they tried to pitch what was good for an audience to the players, right? And I think as like essentially the commissioner of this league, of this thing, you've got to think, what is the format I think is good for players and also for people to watch.
Now,
That's up to you, babe.
I don't want to push an agenda, but I don't mind if people start calling me the commish. I just want that to be said. But also, also,
it took a decade for the Falcon to stick, so just think about that. And I had to forget it was a thing.
I'm not going to introduce myself as the commish. I need you to know that. I actually, I think I have an answer which is less friendly than I would like it to be about. Because the question whether or not it's 40k, I think it does work in 40k, but there are actually some ways to approach the ban. We're talking about this more than I necessarily wanted, but thanks for asking me. There are ways to approach the ban. So I've talked about maybe you could lock in armies and then you do a ban. That's interesting because then what you do is you end up picking a wide selection of armies. Like, maybe you just pick 4 factions of Marines, sort of thing. And you hone in, or you just do universal bans, and there's a bunch of ways that you can do it. Where at the minute we've got bans where you ban one unit from a particular book, and then you can't ban any more, but you aren't locked to army lists. So let's say they ban a bunch of armies, you could just write whatever list, an ad hoc one, and bring it at the weekend. I do understand that requires a significant collection. I do recognise that, but I actually. Would argue that tournament gamers at a certain level are pretty much have that kind of, based on an FAQ, like Falcon says, they pivot on a point. But I'll push back that I definitely want it to be the best experience for the viewers, but I also think this is a better experience for the gamers. I've been to many events, where it's just been won by the guy with the dumbest strong army. Now, they're also good players. But we oftentimes don't, I think, push hard enough on the idea of how much an army carries people sometimes, and we take
Can
that out.
someone please tell me which army that is?
I think it's because it's Admech currently, right? Or maybe Custodes.
Yes, Admech right now. Admech will, I think, thunder punch Custodes. I think Custodes are very good against a lot of other armies, but Admech just have such abusive shooting as well as the best screening mechanic in the game. So Admech, yes, number one.
Right,
I don't know. Rob, I would take some mushrooms and print off a copy of Playing to Win, and then go to Sherwood Forest and have a spirit quest, and then come out, and you'll know all the truth. After that, you'll have all the truth, and you'll know what to do.
Yes, well, most of it's based on that. So thanks for saying that. And also, that statement, by the way, just comes from a personal experience of mine, where I ended up winning quite a large Age of Sigmar event once with units that people thought were trash, but actually, if you took the time to look at them, they were crazy, stupid.
Here we go.
Strong.
Reese Robbins story.
I thought
Hey,
like,
Reese.
So in the background of Val learning about Rob is like say this little chart going up and down like this. I remember like watching him on 40K. I'm like, oh, cool haircut. And then he was up there, and then he was like talking about, I don't know, something silly on Warhammer TV. I'm like, he's lame. And then like I meet him at LVI. I'm like, he's a pretty cool guy. And then like I hear, oh, he got famous for winning an AOS tournament. It goes up. And then I hear that he's like giving reroll dice to his opponents and shit.
I forgot I did that. Yeah.
Wait, is he serious? Down. Just cratered right there. And just realized that you were probably touched by Jesus that day. And you're so cocky that you were like, you know what, mate? Yeah. Just have a free reroll on me. Have six on me, mate. It's okay, babe.
The pity dice is my favourite time. But my point is that army wasn't overly smart. Those units were very strong, and it was that element that really pushed me through. I feel like I played the army well, and I'm not taking anything away from myself. And actually, my final game was very much less about I played well and my opponent played poorly. My opponent, pretty much on the tabletop, had the win, and my opponent threw the game away, which allowed me to take that win in the 6-game tournament. So, like, I want all that to be fair and laid out, but it was the army that carried me through elements of that, very much so. And I think sometimes we could have that conversation about, is a certain tool just so good, like, that it really defines what the game is right now, and we're not seeing that skill. And also, list writing's a skill, meta predicting's a skill, and I think the diversity that we'll see, or this is what I'm hoping, the list diversity that you'll end up seeing will be, maybe it'll just be other broke shit, maybe it'll just be other, like we talk about Tau quite a lot, like Tau obviously like triple riptide, but like what was the list? It was taking all the little skimmers.
Fire?
Oh, no,
Piranhas? What?
no. Well, there was a piranha list that Simon Prittis did, but the list that we had up here in Canada from Devon, the Hammerhead
Oh,
list.
Devilfish and Hammerhead thing, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, to be fair, like the Tau list that was like ripping up TTS and everyone thought was probably the best list if Rona hadn't happened, was Farsight, Crisis Bodyguards. So Tau have like 3 or 4 relatively competitive lists. And yeah,
I think,
good example. Continue.
So so this is where I am somewhat sympathetic, and also this is why I was trying to say about it, the viewer versus the player thing, because as a viewer, I probably don't want to see the same fucking 5 units every game. I probably don't want to see one-sided, lopsided matchups, and I probably want to see people out of their comfort zone, because it's going to make them make mistakes, which makes for opportunities for things to happen. So if you go to something like 7th edition, I was making fun of Tom on Saturday about loving 7th edition. But if you listen to people who really, really liked 7th edition 40K, it's because there's like a 1% of the meta. Like the meta was largely solved and the things got fucked up. But like there's basically a few key matchups or a few lists for each faction maybe. And at that very, very high level, you had people who knew how to play the Death Star versus fill in the blank. And they knew the like minutiae of how to get through that. And on the playing to win example, you have like the Chun-Li like fucking thunder kick example, which for like a new player, they're going to lose to it 100 times out of 100. Whereas like eventually people learn how to counter that crazy thing. And it's not just about the fact that you can spam that one thing. It's that now there's someone who's evolved and understands how to beat you using that one thing, right? But that spam button is going to dominate when someone figures out they can do that, right? One problem that Warhammer does have is that the meta moves so friggin' quick. There's never a chance to catch your breath. And I think that also results in the like really leaning heavily on OP combinations, because they can always be found because the meta is always brand new. And so this is very hard to develop an opportunity to counter, I think, those like really strong builds. Like I think the Leviathan, like that Leviathan build, right? Like I don't think in 40K, if we were playing like a really hardcore, grimy, crunchy game, say it doesn't get banned and the meta has to figure a way around it, it probably gets solved. Probably.
Maybe.
He doesn't think so, but he's a nihilist. He believes in nothing.
It gets solved with AdMech getting released, and then even then, it absorbs so much of the damage it doesn't matter. So
I think that is the problem. That is the problem for people like Pete and I in some ways, because I feel like we mirror that. Because I obviously analyze Age of Sigmar a lot, and the lists and the things that we see. Sometimes that's a great conversation, Val, all the time. Can you unlock and solve the problem? Ask yourself that, and it's a consistent one that we should all do when we're playing the game. Sometimes, like I will applaud when someone thinks it through, but I promise you, like, as soon as I see the problem coming out, I'm like, how do we solve that problem? Like, and I start thinking through all the books, the other players, the other lists that you see, and I'm sure Pete does the same incredibly well in 40K. And sometimes maybe there isn't an answer. Like, and that's how I feel. Like, sometimes there is. Like, and I like that analysis of the 7th edition where it's that top, because I think mirror matches are really fun. I remember Eldar Flyers for a while. Like, we did some coverage last year when Eldar Flyers were a thing, and it was Drukhari Eldar Flyers, and I watched a Drukhari Eldar Flyer mirror match, and I was like, this is fucking dope. I'm having a great time. Like, I think this is a great game. Does everyone want to see that week in, week out for, if only 2 months? It gets a bit much, right? And
sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But
and that's why I'm saying, like, that's why I say the format that you think will be engaging for an audience is different than what a diehard competitive player may want. And eventually, because you have the platform, because you have a cool thing that you're doing that people want to participate in, even if it's different, you might just create a format all onto your own that works. If you look at tabletop tactics, I know I bring up Lawrence like every show because I'm a freaking huge fanboy.
Well, he's got great hair.
He's so dreamy. He's looking more like British George Clooney every day.
Yeah.
But the reason I brought him up is if you think about them, they actually have their own format. It's like an unspoken format. They've actually seemed to have willed 40K towards it, but they've almost always played single faction. They've never the amount of times they've ever allowed allies in their lists has been a handful of times in the history of the show. They always, they're just very specific about the type of game that they play, so that way I think they feel like it's engaging for their audience.
Yes.
Right. So they feel like if they had the meta multiple allies and proxy. Oh, I gotta get Percy. If they had those lists, maybe it would be a turnoff for certain fans. If you had a format for competitive that say took out the ones that everyone's gonna bitch and moan about, like if you banned Eldar flyers in a 40K show, then you won't have the chat talking about how OP 40K flyers are and it's stupid and blah 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 blah. It might be better for a show format. So I think don't discount that beyond for competitive and gaming.
Oh
reasons.
no, and that is a key component, right? Like we've talked about with cricket before, and I think this leads me. I can actually jump off here, and I'm sorry that was longer than. But thank you both for talking to me about it. Because I'm super excited. And I love hearing what you guys think as well.
We just set an adjacent show record, by the way. I've got 89 people by my count. Oh, Bronx.
Oh, look at him! Look at that cute. Look at him. So my question is then to you both, because Val, you played some 40K, socially distanced 40K. Yeah, amazing. How did you find it? That's my experience. But the question I'm going to follow up with is obviously talking about metas. Obviously, we're now in a new game edition where is it a scramble to work out where sits where? Like, how does that start to occur? Do you know what I mean?
What do you mean?
And also, well, normally, if you were writing a meta list or an anti-meta list or just your own list, you would start to understand the other problems that are in the game. You'd be like, here are the other problems. But now, you can't identify what the problems are going to be. So what do you do?
This is great. This is the time in the edition where bad list writers feel like they have a chance. Oh, Brooks, come on, sweetheart. He is so nice. Oh, look at that good wet nose, Bronxy. Looking good.
Oh, look
Clean
at him.
fold. He looks great. Looks great.
He had a real bad day yesterday, so
what happened?
A good bad day. He overheated. He got a little bit of the heat waves hitting him. Went for too long a walk and got too excited, and we had to give him a long, cool bath.
Oh.
I got a big bulldog bath going on in the backyard now. I just got a little kiddie pool.
We did that, and he ate it.
I'm worried that's going to happen too.
Immediately. It worked for all of 6 minutes.
Yeah, he's gorgeous. This is too hard. I love those bullies. What was I talking? What was the question? Oh, yeah, this is when bad list writers have a chance. So you can be like, oh, I got a cool combo, or oh, I'm gonna do this, and it hasn't been solved yet. So everything is good right now, which is great. It's a fun time. Like when 8th edition switched over, I didn't actually realize that I didn't know what I was doing. It felt like everyone didn't, and that was great. And then eventually, people who do know what they were doing figure it out, and then you can just follow what they do and have a good time.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the case. Again, I'm going to do a shout out because I've did this a few times already. Phenomenal work being done by Tabletop Titans at the minute.
Yes.
I can't stop watching their stuff. Phenomenal work. What?
That's a bit of a 180.
No, it's not what I think.
Hey,
I think
a 15-minute dissertation on why they weren't assholes.
that is not true. Thank you for misrepresenting me again. No, that's not the case. I said that it was a bit generalized, and I wasn't sure where it was coming from. It was a bit like these are going to be X, and I was like, okay, but then it doesn't matter whether, and I still think that's true. It's still a bit generalized, but it's phenomenal work. It's every faction every day. It's great work.
Yeah.
It gives you a jump off point to have the conversation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it helps that Brian Pullen is just one step below Cyborg. When he and Brandon Grant get into the same room, weird things start to happen. There's the static electricity everywhere. Yeah, it's super great. I love everything that they're putting out. It's really gotten me excited for the new edition. Yeah, I really
It really
need
sucks.
points. I
It
really need
really sucks
points.
that the best and brightest in our society are either running a Fortune 500 company or winning 40K tournaments. Like we should probably draft them to like run our countries or something.
Yeah, I don't know. We're
Or
not an
bakeries.
oligarchy. We can't figure it out.
Yeah, or
Prime the
bakeries.
pup.
But yeah, anyway, my point is do you have any feelings about the meta? Val, how was your game? Like, was it? Like, did you actually play one of the missions? Did you find it significantly different to how you've thought of 40K before?
Um, okay, so I'm gonna go cross-eyed and just do a little free association. Yes, 100% significantly different to how we played 40K because there's so many cool things going on. There's all these interactions that we haven't really dealt with. It's not solved. Mostly though, like the board first and foremost, there's just so much more going on with like the terrain and what's presented in front of you. So people will sometimes call terrain the third player. It actually is now. There's all kinds of stuff that can change how you move on the table, how you can use it. Again, maybe some of these things get solved, and there's only certain things you do in certain situations. But right now, it's super fun. Like, oh, there's a obscured area. There's a dense terrain area. We had moments where we screwed up basic things, which is gonna happen, guys. Like, you're gonna forget that you can see through the window, or you're gonna forget that you can't see through the window. And that's cool. Eventually, you won't even think about it, and you'll get it right every time. My opponent left two characters standing alone with their dicks in their hands on an objective, and I murdered them. And one of them was Trahan Valoris. So,
Yes.
um, so that was bad feels, but that's just sort of how it'll go the first couple games. Just don't take it too seriously. Have fun, learn it. I thought it was. I feel super dumb because I'm on a bunch of shows and I did the most Heffelfinger thing ever, which is we played primary completely wrong. Although in my defense, he could have also read the mission pack at the same time, wherein we played it so that you could only max 15 points, period. Instead of instead of that being 45 points over the game, and that would have really changed things. And I now kind of I understand what they mean by scoring tension. I think Brant talks a lot about how that's their goal, rather than it being. He actually he was cool. I asked him a bit about it, and he sent me a big long message about some of the ideas behind it. And one of them was in Nova and ITC formats, they felt that essentially you could solve for the secondary. So like secondaries were a given. So like you just made sure that you got your secondaries. And then really what you were playing then is the primary. And there was no cap on primary. So like therefore, essentially it was like who blinks or who has an army that can't either like sit on objectives and kill one, or who isn't able to sit on one objective and kill more. He's basically talking about how it was a pretty solved format at the highest level and got boring and not dynamic. So they're trying to create something that forces you to move, because it really is in the game. Although you can always hold or score up to 45 points on primary by holding more, and holding more than one, or holding more than two, right? So that can get 15 points a turn.
But anyway, yes.
Yeah. It's mostly that. I've skimmed
Five
through.
of them are that.
Yeah, okay. And so like you're doing that, but then on the secondary side of things, which are hard to max, actually they are legitimately hard.
Yep.
At least they do appear at first blush. You've got to figure out how you also do that while standing on enough objectives to get your primary.
Yeah,
because you also have the opportunity cost of like taking the actions, for example. Like doing those actions is kind of tricky, because like, for example, I deep struck some scouts to get repair the teleporters, whatever, where you have to like do an action in the enemy's deployment zone.
Yep.
But I held my guys in reserve until third turn, which means I could only actually do it in one turn before the game was over. And I just didn't realize that. So like they put a lot of pressure on you to do things in a certain amount of time. They're a lot of fun. Love the terrain. We played it at 1,600 points, so it felt like a tighter game. It was great. I love the board size. I think it's all been very well constructed. We'll find out how it all comes out in the wash, but it certainly feels like they put the right amount of thought into this, and they've done some neat tweaks. We'll see how it all plays out, though.
Yeah. The missions are the thing I'm most excited about playing. I'll be playing very soon, which I'm pumped about. I do think the missions, in some ways, especially the primaries, might really push a certain style of army, more so than we might have seen before, like we talked about. But hopefully, in codexes or in later releases, there are different ways. But the primary of doing secondaries and all this, but the primary is very specific, and it's very, very like attrition defense orientated. Like
Yes.
destroy a point, hold a point. And I do worry, like I'm painting up Gazgul right now as an example while we're talking. I'm like, okay, he can smash something off a point and maybe live on a point for a turn. But the rest of the Orc Codex, I'm going to start like exploring that later. But, you know, listening to Brian and some other people, you know, you hear things like Death Guard, Custodes, Marines to a certain degree because they've got kind of a wounds cap, also on their good armor saves. So there's a really interesting conversation about those primaries. But I do feel that they are singular. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's very interesting. I'm excited to play it. What do you think, Pete?
I'm mostly in agreement. I can't wait to see the GT pack. That's probably when I'm gonna actually have my full like this is how things work, because we don't know what's in that yet, and what does that add? There's a couple problems with the missions right now at first blush. They're very small, I think, to your average player, but when you start aggregating games, it's going to become an issue. The like attacker defender concept is heavily in the defender's favor. Heavily in the defender's favor.
There's no benefit to the attacker, period.
The one benefit to being the attacker is you see one model or one unit get placed before you place anything. But like you don't.
I guess you don't finishing first doesn't matter anymore. So that's
finishing
why
first doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's right.
So you don't get a +1 for going first. You just roll off again. So you get to pick your deployment zone, and that's a big thing in this game where there's no offset. So it'll be interesting to see if that's addressed in the GT pack. There's a few other things they say are addressed in the GT pack that I'll be curious to read. But overall, I do like where the game is headed. It's just are these like little things already thought of? So we'll have to see. I imagine they are. These guys have been testing for a while, and I do have at least a modicum of faith in how they do things. Sometimes they make me sad, but generally, I feel like when you, especially given like what these playtesters are good at, which was making missions, that them helping design missions, they would hopefully see like that as being a bit of an issue. But we'll have to see.
I think one of the neat things about this edition versus 8th edition, and I think we touched on this in the show at one point, is just that like the playtesters have been involved the whole time. Like whereas with 8th edition they weren't. They came into the studio and they saw a pretty much done version of 8th edition, or at least a very late advanced copy. Whereas they've been influencing the studio and providing feedback this whole time, which is great. So I think that means that I think we're going to see some really good things out of that GT pack. I'm super excited. It's actually literally one of my biggest wish list items would be for them to have an official tournament pack, and they actually call it the Grand Tournament Pack. I think that is like so cool. Like I is like you can rewind the tape and hear me beg for that so many times. So I think that's wonderful. I trust that it will be good because you have the best. Well, for what it's worth, the people who have led the groups that have created the accepted mission packs for the biggest tournaments that exist are play testers. They have provided feedback, and I assume a great deal of influence on these packs, and hopefully that means they're good. We'll see. I'm nervous about like faction specific secondaries and stuff like that based on like how Maelstrom cards were kind of bonkers. But it could be that those don't get played in like a proper tournament match
play. There's things they could do. It's just like with anything that people are currently complaining about like the 9th edition rules. It's a lot of it's very obvious, very easily fixed. So I'm not overly concerned about stuff like that yet. But been wrong before. So
yeah,
one day at a time.
I'm just excited. Like and I mean that with all honesty. Like Mikey, we did on Thursday we did the mission show, and we talked through all the missions and the secondaries and stuff. And it sounded like the secondaries are hard to achieve, but the primaries is the game. Like there's a game happening there where you've got to move. Yeah, you've got to get involved.
Yep.
There's
You gotta
trade-offs.
make choices. Yeah, you gotta make choices.
You got to make
Um,
You
choices.
have
And
to be
that's,
in the open.
yeah.
Dude Day
Sorry.
asked if Nova Elves will be in the mission packs. Go find a picture of the suggested terrain
Yeah,
and have a look and see how that table's set up.
that's what they want.
And
I imagine it's going to be one singular type of map as well.
They
Will be
they
the
gave
suggestion.
out two options, and from everything I've seen from like even Mike Brandt has been like openly on Comp 40K and other places saying this is what we want. This is how we designed the missions to interact was with these two particular like terrain ideas. So you can see if you go to that article that GW released, the terrain preview article, they have like two example boards, but that's like explicitly how they wanted the game tested and played was like these are the setups we want.
you have in that picture you have in two corners of the table a stack of crates. In the other two corners, you have two ruins. In the center of the table, you have two ruins. In between those, you have obstacles and other shit to walk through. It is a Nova table.
It's about 14 pieces of terrain. The light one uses more like obstacles and craters versus the big one, which has like two extra large ruins. But they're essentially the exact same in terms of like how much is on the board. So it'll be curious to see how that changes things because Nova L's, I don't think they want them. Nova L is completely block line of sight. All the doors and stuff are blocked up.
They have two giant ruins in the center of the board on the heavy table.
But Windows work again, Val. Windows work
Windows
again.
work. Windows work.
Only when you're in. What? What do you,
Only
if you're
toe in.
Of the obscure rule.
Only if you're toe in, they work, and that's a big deal now because now you have to decide: do I hold back from the ruin to try and block line of sight, or do I get into it to get cover? Because you don't have cover when you're not toe in anymore. Like it's a big difference. It makes a big difference in how you think and play the game, which I like. I'm not opposed to it,
especially where the objectives are at that particular moment, because that's also really important as well. Because,
often they're right center. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that they are literally calling for two. So at the start of the game, there are two gigantic line of sight blocking pieces of terrain in the middle of the table, and there are ruins in either corner. Like if you put two pictures next to each other of Nova terrain, like the standard Nova setup, next to what they've recommended, you're telling me that there's not a clear influence there?
No, I'm not saying that. I don't know. Like what I'm saying is the Nova L as it exists is different now. Because they like a Nova L would
completely
still in this day and age still block line of sight even if you were toe in.
Same but different. I will accept that. I will accept that.
And that
we're splitting
same but different completely changes how you would play.
Yeah,
you
it's
can't
very
just
different.
like tuck in and hide any longer.
Have you seen what a Games Workshop table of terrain generally?
Oh no,
looks like?
I know, but that's what they want. They want you to be able to use that terrain, right? Like all of that terrain in the example is
be like a swamp, like a picture of a crate, and that would be like what
I played Warhammer Fantasy Battle a long time. Yes, I'm very well aware of what a GW terrain table should be built to look like.
I actually think I think the conversation between them of deciding on terrain and missions is phenomenal, and is the thing that would I talked about it, and you can rewind on me. Like I don't give a shit about a GT pack. I don't give a shit about anything else. I only care about those missions and actually making a game that you're playing. Now, obviously, you already. I'm
going to be more cantankerous, Rob. Yeah. Why do you care about the book missions when that's not what people will be playing as far as competitive is concerned?
Oh well, I would expect them to put I would expect the match play missions to be like just in the I understand that they've done the GT pack because they're effectively saying we're going to mess up the core rules, and so our GT pack is our FAQ book for how to run GTs. We've not done enough advanced work to quality control the core book. I get what you want. You're like, always quality control your shitty work. I'm so used to it that I want you to do that ahead of time. Like, but the key dynamics are the key points are is that they're doing something about the missions and they're in the core book, like we know, which is good. If there are the same types of missions, primaries and secondaries in the GT pack, I'm for it.
It
but
it is.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, then the missions are like that's all I'm excited about. the missions. Like, and I
Okay.
want to play, and I want to get better at it because I think that there's a whole bunch of skills which I don't understand right now. Like, I'm gonna put units in the wrong place on the wrong turn. I'm gonna. There's so much to learn, and that for me is exciting. Like turn one, just like game one, being like, oh, let me list all of my mistakes, and get better. I'm hyped. Whereas previously, I didn't necessarily feel that that's what was going on. I felt like I
But
brought.
you're also coming into more of a solved game too. Like that's what I was saying before. Like everyone kind of has a chance right now, which is great. Everyone's learning lessons. Everyone's going to come away from something that might be useful to someone else, right? Like we're all going to be learning lessons in every game. It's fun.
Yeah, I'm excited. Excited. Is there anything you guys have seen this week that you also think is cool or fun 40k stuff? Other than, because I mean, there's so much to talk about.
I discovered last night that there's a special edition rule book that I believe has a fancy bookmark in it that I'm considering.
Good. Pete, what about you? Anything?
No, man. I mean, I still need points in order for me to really start nailing down what I like. And I mean, the GT pack will be helpful because I assume it clarifies a couple smaller things. Overall, like you, I'm excited about the missions. It didn't take me too long to get super excited about them. Like immediately after I read them, I was like, these are really good. And then, you give it that second read and you say, ooh, this go first business probably needs an adjustment. Hopefully it's covered. And then hearing Brant's talk about why they did the secondaries, because he openly posted the concept behind how they built them, that it was mostly a GW thing. It made better sense, and I understood it, and it also made better sense as to why he was using some of the arguments he had been using over the last few months, because this is something that they've been talking about the concept of solved secondaries and how the game had devolved into just a primary game. So it didn't surprise me when it got released that way.
Did I represent his ideas correctly?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's the big thing was it's like a GW thing, and the big thing about it that he says is that because it's their game, they can do more unique things than the ITC or Nova could ever do.
Yeah.
So they can have these psychic tests that give you points. Whereas if Reese had tried to pull that, the ITC TO group probably would have been like, "You're a moron! Shut up! You can't make us do anything."
Yeah.
Because
the closest
that's
they could get was
always
engineered.
the initial reaction. Yeah, right. Whatever they're like, we'll play how we want. So now with GW saying it, it's not as silly. It doesn't sound as silly. It sounds cooler because Big Daddy's telling us what to do. We love Big Daddy.
Everyone,
oh, Big Daddy
loves to lick a boot, don't they?
Daddy,
it's really
tell
exciting.
me what to do.
Well, that's good. What armies do you think you're going to try and play early doors? Obviously, COVID babies and everything else. Is there anything you're particularly interested in right now?
Custodes is my army, and so it will be that 100%. I built probably 18 lists depending on points that I love, and then Blood Angels are a second, but Custodes mostly.
Custodies are a big one where it's really hard to judge them until you see their points, until you see how much they've changed it around. I played with my Raptors, and I think if I squeeze another game in, which I have one scheduled for Thursday, we'll see. I'll bring Lias Ice in again because I assume Bronxy. I assume Lias will get legended, and we'll never see him again. So I'm trying to use Lias as much as I can, and I used a bunch of Invictor Warsuits. Because not having the move and shoot penalty is crazy awesome for walkers and dreadnoughts and shit. Also, Space Marines are super easy to fire into a box, grab a handful of them, and have an army that works. So that's why I'm using them, because everything else is packed up.
I bought a unit of the Crimson Paladins from Forge World. That I'm going to be using as Blade Guard for my Blood Angels because I really love the models, and I had somebody who had a copy of Indomitus already do a side-by-side comparison of Cataphracti and them, and they're the exact same size, so it's
awesome.
amazing. So yeah, they're definitely my Blade Guard because I do think the Blade Guard are pretty friggin' badass. And as Blood Angels, they will be super awesome if you read the Naughty Leaks. So I want to give it a go. I like it.
Oh, nice. I'm tempted by my Death Guard early, but it's going to take me a
Death
while to
Guard
get
are
those guys.
so good.
It's going to take me a while to get those guys ready, and I don't necessarily know what sort of list I want yet. Obviously, based on points, I think I'd like to go super elite and just play around with that and have some fun, as opposed to like the Demon Engine version, which is definitely a thing. I think that would be fun to do in a small painting project. I've already got Morty, which is rad, and then just take some Death Shrouds and some Marines and just see what I do. If it sucks, I can obviously pivot away, which is fun. And then I'd like to keep trying my orcs out at the minute. I think the Day of the Boys may be done, but I would like to keep exploring them, especially Gazgul. I think I'd also like to try him out for a while and see what the situations are and what he can bring to the tabletop. But
you're not bringing any Scrib Whack Biggle Buggies?
No, I'll definitely take some. I don't think I'll take a Wazbomb Blaster Jet, but maybe if its points come down. I doubt they will though, but because that could be fun. But I obviously I'll take some Met Guns. I've heard Met Guns might still be okay, so that's a positive. Because they're still tough to shift and they're good backline. They could screen well against deep strikes into my own objective.
You can move and shoot them.
Can move and shoot them. Yeah. Can move and shoot them. Which is fun. They're also blast weapons.
Hey, bro.
I also the custom mega cannons. I also am like that like extreme, like as far as hordes are concerned, making hordes like wildly crazy MSU. I'm actually, now that I've played a mission, I think there's legs there where like you get survivability just by overwhelming your opponent with things to shoot. I think there's something there because you also need tons of units to achieve objectives. Like you do need all that stuff. So you need damage dealers, but you also need just like dudes to do stuff. And I think the orcs can do that. I think and also don't underestimate how much defense you get from terrain now. There's lots of additional benefits out there, from -1s to be hit to, easier ways to get cover saves, easier ways on a lot of tables to get line of sight blocking. Yes, even though you're not in the ruin, you do get lots of line of sight blocking from more people. So I think there's all kinds of stuff that will help orcs. We'll see, but I don't think they're dead in the water. I really want to try and fill out a brigade once I see the points.
I do think they're just going to be much more difficult to play. I really liked the Tabletop Titans on orcs. I thought it was very educational, but I also thought it was one that was built around people that maybe weren't the best orc players, so it's hard to say. Like I said earlier, Brian is like an incredible mind, so it wouldn't shock me if he's like 100% dead on in how you probably need to play them now. But like it's not his primary army. Whereas Tau, Custodes, Death Guard to a lesser degree are armies that he's played a lot of. So those ones were ones where I was like, yeah, this guy knows what he's doing. Adrian plays Eldar, so I expected their Eldar one to be pretty decent, and it was. So yeah, it's orcs are in a very interesting place. I think the loser right now on first blush is Gene Stealer cults, but once again, that all depends on points. Because Gene Stealer cults didn't get a good Psychic Awakening, and they got hammered into the ground with FAQs and points changes. So I think if anybody, and then if you watch Tabletop Tactics, their Space Marines versus Gene Stealer cult episode was really sad. It was really sad.
Well, they've also struggled to ever do anything cool with Gene Stealer cults on the channel.
I know, and the list wasn't very good anyway. But just that concept where they started with like all of our games and testing were pretty close. We're quite excited, and then they have the game. Gene Stealer cults get tabled on turn 3. Spoiler alert! And then they're like, well, this never really happened before. It's like your first time. You're like, oh, that. This hasn't happened before. This was an accident. Like, sure, we finished like 3 hours earlier than you expected, but or an hour and a half earlier. But yeah.
They have a tendency to run at each other and die on that channel, but are super entertaining while they do so. So I think that's why they struggle a bit with Gene Stealer cult. We'll see. Because I think
sometimes good games are really boring games, right?
Yeah. Again, it's what's good to watch. I think they're focused more on like making watchable things, and that wasn't particularly watchable either. Anyway, I think just having so many units and being able to cycle them in and constantly trade maybe is something. I don't know. I feel like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I feel like that kind of approach to a horde will have legs, and I think G-Star cults will be there. Like imagine take like a brigade of orcs, make it death skulls, so every infantry dude
Yeah.
has obstac, and just fill every slot with infantry or whatever you can. And
I do think
then
Death Skulls is the best version to play of this of Orcs right now. They've got
yeah,
the
for
most
sure.
to
If
benefit.
monofaction, I think so.
Yeah, well, I think so. I also the reason I'm also excited is that trade mechanic, like you're talking about Val, MSU, throw them on objectives, take them off, those sorts of things. So already something like I'm quite experienced with from Age of Sigmar. Like it's arguably one of the most fun dynamics at deployment, especially as a caster. Oftentimes when we see, especially let's talk about the drama. Let's talk about casting 40k now, and they've added some amazing elements. With Age of Sigmar, a person of the two people gets the choice on who goes first. So as you're looking at deployment, you can second guess what the plans are and where they're going to trade off. There's a drama point there, but the drops for 40k now with the dice roll is going to be very, very exciting. Like I think probably you'll see very traditional safety, like a lot of safety plays, but because you have to go get objectives, you have to move on to X. Maybe you've only got a certain level of movement. You might see those frontline things put in places. Like it's such a dynamic first turn at deployment before that dice roll even happens that it's a really exciting sub game. And for me, I'm hype about that, especially when you don't score on that first turn. So there's a lot of will you, won't you? We just go defensive, turtle up, then come out. Or are you not? Like, it's going to be super interesting to play, super interesting also to watch, and I think that's really good. I'm excited by that.
And you only really have, there's 4 meaty turns. Like you have that first turn sort of as your gambit, and also you can score maybe some secondaries, some of them. But for the most part, you are trying to set up that second turn so that you're in position to start scoring. And I don't know. It seems like fun. I had a great time. I think it's going to be, and it's going to be a while before anything is solved.
Okay. Yeah. Agreed.
Theoretically, hopefully.
Yes. Hopefully.
Just
Well,
so
I
much
mean,
stuff.
also, it's a weird thing, isn't it, with the COVID and the lockdown? That can you even really? Anyway, it's been lovely having you both on the show. Thank you so much. Sorry, I did so much Super Series chat, but thank you for talking to me about it.
We prompted it.
No, it's been rad. You guys got any shout outs you want to give? Anyone want you to holler up? You guys are always wonderful. I love the adjacent show. Anyone you want to holler?
No.
Shout out to my boy the Falcon Monday nights reading books.
Yeah, I'm gonna put a link to that in the show notes below.
I would say shout out to playing 40k socially distanced in a safe way with masks on, because I did that and I felt like I wasn't being irresponsible. I felt like we could pretty safely play 40k, and I didn't think that was going to be a fun experience. I didn't think it was going to be nearly as good as it actually was. Tournament 40k is going to be hard to get back and going. But I'll tell you, like playing one-on-one, just playing a friend, if you're wearing masks and stand 6 feet apart, as far as I can tell, and not like sharing dice and fucking touching shit, you can do this, I think, in a pretty reasonably safe way. And that makes me so happy, because I think that's cool. Just don't be an asshole.
Easy enough.
Actually do the, if you're inside, actually fucking wear your masks and wash your hands and do that. So that way we can
be excellent to each
get
other.
Tournaments back sometime.
And also, yes, with that said, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure has got a 4K remastering coming out sometime soon, and that's right up on my list. Probably because I feel. Go on, after you.
The finale's coming. The trilogy. They're finally ending it. I'm so excited.
Imagine if they had done like a Simon Pegg-esque level of like interspersed like Easter eggs, that because it was kind of before that was ever really a thing, where there was you had that intense internet analysis of every film. There was some threads that we never even realized, and actually when they bring out the trilogy, they can bring out all these elements from the other two films, and they were so well thought out and planned ahead, and it blows our minds, and we were like, oh my god, we never saw that coming. I doubt it highly, but I would like that to be the case.
what I would have loved for them to do, and I think it was the guys. I think it was Rob Corddry from Hot Tub Time Machine that wanted this. If they'd ever made a third movie, was I would have loved if they did like Bill and Ted 5 instead of 3, and just were like, go with it, right? Like it's a time. It's like a time machine style element to it, and just be like, yeah, who knows what happened in those other two? They might come out later, they might not. And you can make references to shit that hasn't happened yet to everybody else.
That's a great
I would
bit.
love that concept. Yeah.
Yes, that's perfect. All right, well, it's been a pleasure. Everyone in the chat's mocking me. Patreon guys, thank you so much. Couldn't do it without you, especially the new ones. There's a whole bunch of you. You guys are great. Thank you to everyone on the podcast. Please stay hydrated. And thank you again to these two guys who give up a portion of their week every week to make me entertained and enjoy myself. So thank you so much. If you do want to hear intense 40k, you should join us for Thursday night's 40k show, which I'm quite hype about. And is there any more 40k this week? Maybe. Probably. I'll talk some. More than likely. All right. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Goodbye.